What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show where we teach you to make massive income, not just passive income with your real estate investing business. If this is your first time here, I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-host Dan Austin.
Hey-o.
And on these Wednesday shows, we talk about real estate investing business and whatever else we feel like. And so traditionally, our business, if you guys are kind of like not familiar with us at all, Dan and I have been running a full-time off-market business for about 4 years and a bit now.
We're going into our fifth year into business together. Business.
Which is pretty crazy.
And it is crazy.
You know, like basically the focus has always been on going direct to seller to find the best deals. Mm-hmm. Very popular strategy. You know, we have our whole scale community where we teach this strategy. There's a billion other groups out there that teach the same sort of basic shit, right? The same general model. Because if you want to make a successful business that grows, that's kind of what you have to do. You can't rely on realtors and stuff. And over that period of like building that out, you always try different things. You try wholesaling, try flipping. You know, people do the creative thing. People get into like these weird like novations and other bullshit that people do. But we've always sort of leaned on wholesaling because it's quicker money. And currently, Dan, we've had a really fun time because we are, selling off some of our properties. We have a few of them that we have some decent equity in. We're trying to sell. We're also concerned about taxes. So we're doing some, seller wraps and different kinds of seller financing deals. And let me tell you, it is making me so aware. It's really reminding me about why we stopped flipping homes and selling homes to freaking retail buyers.
Oof, yeah.
Because it's such a pain in my ass,
dude,
all the time. Just like the little things.
It's a lot of work.
It is so much work. And like the problem is every retail buyer, they're looking for a reason to not buy your deal. Like it can be anything. Yeah. Like it can be a screaming deal and they'll be like, I don't want to buy this because I don't really like the corner that we have here. I feel like it's not round enough for me.
Yeah. Especially like the retail investor buyer, which is kind of how we're trying to sell these things, right? We're positioning them to be like a good equity play or cash flow play for somebody that wants to buy. One of them is a fully furnished short-term rental. Like, hey, just move in. It's like a good price as is, but it's fully furnished and you can just literally buy it and start renting it out as a fully furnished rental. Good deal. We're trying to sell in a wrap so you can have shitty credit if you wanted to, as long as you qualify underneath like what we want for a buyer. And it's just a pain in the ass getting people, because you're right. They go into it and you open the conversation with them and immediately you're like, ugh, this is gonna be a waste of time.
You can tell right away. Yeah.
Right.
and I don't know if it's like the tone, but like when it's investors that are kind of, maybe it's because like when you're dealing with a decent investor that's done a lot of deals, they kind of like know the stuff that you want to hear and they lead with that. Yes. When it's like a tire kicker or like a recreational investor or a retail buyer's even worse, they don't know anything.
Yeah. Or they'll ask like shit that should not even matter. Like they'll just ask questions that you're like, that doesn't even matter. Because they are, to your point, trying to find a reason not to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's even worse when their agent is representing the uneducated retail buyer, because more than likely the agent has no idea what's going on either.
Yeah,
and it's probably like their hairdresser's cousin. It's just like it's like the blind leading the blind. And now not only are they having a bad conversation there, but you're playing a game of telephone. And you have the uneducated person relaying incorrect information.
Yeah. Imagine trying to teach how seller wrap works to a quote investor friendly agent to their client. Like, you're like, okay, I know you don't get it. I know this is not going to communicate to your client at all. This doesn't translate. And then you come back with a complex, like, here's what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, does the owner of the property next door own that Jeep? Like, why? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Well, you see, because if they own a Jeep, it means they're a Pisces, and my freaking buyer will not live next to a Pisces.
Yeah. It's like you're in Spokane, bro. Half the people drive around with weird 2A stickers to represent that they're some gun carrying weirdo.
Oh God, I know.
It's okay.
Dude, I had one in particular. I posted on several different Facebook groups, one of the ones that we're looking to sell. And I had this exchange with this person for like so much information. like everything that we could think of. We're going into the payments, we're going into the stuff about the neighborhood. And at the very end, she goes, okay, this has all been very helpful. Thank you. In order to really move forward, my buyers really need to know the address. It was like the third fucking line.
Oh yeah. I've had
my
that
post
before.
was the address. And I'm like, why are you asking me these questions? You don't even know where it is.
Totally. Yeah. It's a whole thing, dude. It's like, so what are the numbers on this thing? I'm like, it's right. It's all right there. It's all laid out, because I know as an investor, all the shit you need to know to run your analysis. So it is right there in the posting.
Crazy.
Do it with it what you will. I gave you the address. If you want to go burn it down, I don't care. Like, just freaking buy it.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. It's like, this is why, you wholesale. Like, our whole model has always been, you wholesale these properties, right? You have your list of like preferred buyers. You try to sell every single thing to them, even if it means you make a little bit less money. So it'll be easy. You won't have to deal with the transaction nonsense. You can just get things moving forward. And then if you can't sell it to them for some reason, or you have them that's like extra juicy, then you go out to the larger market and you let all the people sort of fight over it. But focusing specifically on the retail buyers, no. I can't do it. Like, it just,
we actually had there's a great question too when you're talking about buyers in our scale community coaching call today. One of the folks had asked, like, how do you like vet out a buyer if you've never worked with them? Like, that is exactly why you just said, like, we go to our top few buyers that we sell everything to, because we don't want to have to vet it. The real question is then how do you get to that point? And part of it, and not you should do everything you can to not get screwed over, but part of it is testing the waters sometimes and learning the lesson the hard way, or learning, hey, that person is going to do deal with. Because when you haven't ever done a deal, everybody's new to you. So you have to kind of like investigate their track record, like asking them what kind of deals they've done. What are they planning to do with this property? What does their financing look like? And if they have a shaky answer on any of those, they're definitely going to be new. Doesn't mean you can't do a deal with them, but you better expect them to not close with it. Because more often than not, people that say they're a buyer aren't a buyer when you ask them to actually come to the table with a check.
For sure. I mean, totally. Everyone's a buyer until you ask for money. Everyone wants to invest in a property until they have to sign on the dotted line. And then at that point, every single reason is a reason for them not to do the deal. And it's just so
many stupid reasons. I just think about all the ones over the years. Like, there looked to be a crack in the concrete on the foundation. It's like, yeah, it's concrete. There's cracks all the time.
And everything.
I don't know what to tell you. And everything. Yeah. Like, it's... Or it's I'm selling this as is, so it's priced appropriately. If it's not for you, it's good. So stop asking me questions about the carpet pad.
Yeah.
Like the thing that doesn't matter.
Always a good one. Yeah. It's literally the least important thing and the easiest thing to change.
Yes, absolutely.
You can swap out all of your carpet in the entire empty house in like a day, and it'll cost you a few $1,000 and it'll be good as new. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's been our current grievance. But aside from that, I mean, on the wholesale side, things have been going well.
Yeah.
Some transactions moving. We've even had a couple challenging different seller situations that have been getting done, getting figured out. I mean, we have this one right now, and guys, this is why this is how you earn your money, right? So we have this seller that she has this condo, we're wholesaling it, and everything was looking good. And then on title, they found that she has 4 other siblings that have right to the property. And she reached out to all of them. And there was one in particular who decided to be a little bit bitchy and was like, nope, I want nothing to do with it. I'm not signing anything. Right. Most people. So at this point, you basically can't buy the deal because she won't write off on it. Title won't insure it. 99.9% of people would just be like, well,
that sucks.
Guess we can't do this one. That sucks. I guess we gotta move to something else. No, instead, we got on the phone with this lady, and turns out she just hates the seller. She's more than happy to talk to us. She just wants to stick it to her. And so when she finds out that she's selling to somebody else, she's like, oh, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Done. Earn our money. Weird conversation. You have to like convince her it's not a scam, right? And like explain like the whole deal. Super simple, all getting sorted out, and we're moving forward with it now.
People have complex family situations, and you have to know how to navigate them, because that's not the first time we've had to connect with an estranged person that refused. Remember the deaf lady that we had to do that with? It's like, well, you don't even have to talk to her because she can't hear you. So, I mean, just sign the paperwork.
We've had that a lot with like divorced couples too, where they're like horrified that they're going to have to go to closing at the same time. And it's like, no, we can set it up differently. We can have you like not even be in the same vicinity at the same time. It really doesn't matter. But
More often than not, when you get to that estranged person, like they're super easy to work with. Like they're not as bad as that person is, just like however they're communicating with each other, they're not that bad with normal people.
No. And as soon as they sort of realize that you're Switzerland, you're neutral. It's generally pretty simple 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, you're not like, always. I don't care that like your wife left you to go and marry a transitioning woman that's named Jace. I know you.
Specific.
I know that you're offended by it, but I don't care. I really don't.
God. Man, that one sticks with us, doesn't that? Was such a weird. That was like Jerry Springer, like in real life.
That was Jerry Springer in real life. That one has stuck. I don't know why. The birds in the house, the smell. And it's one of our best performing houses. Had we not been able to get a hold of the husband that refused to sign the paperwork, and it turns out the reason why he refused to sign the paperwork is because he was trying to protect his ex-wife. He was worried that she was making a bad decision.
Yeah, I know. He was overly sympathetic, and then it worked out just fine. But we got to do an animated adventure about that one. If you guys haven't been seen this on Instagram, I'm at Mike_invest and Dan's at investment Dan. We are releasing a new little series of content to go along with the show that are going to be the Collecting Keys animated adventures. Go and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you just look up Collecting Keys on YouTube, and you'll be able to see those. But basically, we have the capacity to release about once a month with the animator that we have. And we're going to take some of the craziest stories that have come either from guests or from ourselves and turn them into these little like 2 to 5 minute cartoons. They're kind of like awesome. South Park style. They're super awesome. Over the top. And it'll just be something a little bit different I've wanted to do for years, ever since we started dealing with some of these insane situations.
I must have been, I can't remember, like a few years ago, you're like, you could really make a TV show about this. And then it kind of evolved. Like, it would be so cool if we had these little cartoons. And guess what now we do.
It's because you have to approach it the right way, right? Because, we can retell the story. You can make light of like some of the tragic nature of it. You can turn it into a cartoon that's obviously satire. That's fine. But then there's people like, to go and try to make a TV show out of it, and they're going and knocking on the door of the lady that has no idea that her home's just gotten sold, and you're like, hey, you got to get out of here, you trashy person. Like, that's not good TV. That's not good TV.
That is not good TV. Yeah, no. But we're able to pluck out. So if you haven't listened to how many episodes, we got a couple 100, 200-300 coming up.
Yeah. So this one's 192 officially, but we also have like 85 of the Friday focuses. So we're pushing almost 300.
So we can pluck out. You don't have to go back and listen to all of the crazy stories. We're going to be able to pluck out the best ones that are even cartoon appropriate, because some of them get pretty wild.
They do get pretty wild. Yeah. I know, this one's really funny. He gets it. The one that's coming out, or I guess that came out last week at the time of this episode, is about this big slumlord that had this commercial property that he rented out to all these crazy people.
It's such a great story.
Way, go check out Collecting Keys on YouTube. Subscribe over there, and you'll be alerted as they come out, because it'll be fun. Some additional stuff we're working on. But besides that, I mean, it's funny, just like the real estate space as a whole. I don't know if there's ever been a time where we've been in business that there's been so little talk about real estate in the media. Is it just because it's an election year?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. It has to be, right? And I think the market's kind of flat, because I think everybody's realizing we might extend these high rates into the latter part of this year. And so I think people are kind of like, well, what do I do? Everybody's in like this wait and see mode, it feels like. And then they're like, but Donald Trump's in the news, so that's gonna make a way better story.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it just draws more eyes right now than interest rates that people are kind of sick of. I mean, on affordability, the real estate market, people already know that. People used to lean on like the hedge funds and the anti-landlord views for a while. People are kind of like, I'm over that. I mean, you had your little post that went viral. People were going after you, but the reality is everyone that is upset about landlords, they'd be a landlord in 5 seconds if they could figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, if they could figure it out. If they want to deal with the headaches of owning properties, they would do it in a heartbeat.
No, dude, there's no headaches. You're just a greedy rich person living off the hard work of other people. Go get a real job.
Very true. Very true.
So I know it's just, I have no idea what to expect over the next little bit. And has been so little anything. I mean, I think the big news that just keeps coming back around is the slow collapse of the commercial market. But even then, just because there's so much money behind that, it's happening kind of in slow motion.
It's kind of, I think like the niche you got to figure out in that is like at what levels, because the media talks about these big office towers, right? That are the billions of dollars. Like that's kind of out of our network, like out of most people's network, right? Other than like a few people. And so then what's like that next layer? And then what's that next layer deeper too? And so how can you get the data and understand when like those notes are coming due and when is it a prime opportunity to buy those things at a good discount while rates are high, while their notes are coming up and they're not able to perform on them. But the caveat to that is you got to be able to get lending on it too. So on the commercial space has to be performing at some level. You got to figure that piece out.
I mean, yeah, and like you said, though, it's so far removed from like most people. So like, I mean, we are already a niche of a niche in real estate, right? Like the direct to seller, the full-time investor doing high volume, that is already an extremely small population.
Yeah.
I would say that like that group of people that is buying like skyscrapers is an even smaller population. That's like 5 companies, period.
Yeah. That's just a handful of people that know how to do that.
Totally. And so like you hear about those sort of things, and to everyone else, it's like, I don't know, hearing that Microsoft is down on their Q2 projections. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Why should I care?
Yeah. How does that affect me right now? Probably doesn't.
It probably doesn't at all, you know? And I think if that happened at a massive scale all at once, it would affect people because banks would collapse and a whole bunch of other things would get really weird very quickly. But even then, for the average person, if the banks collapse, what does that mean for you? Unless they steal all your money and you have money above the FDIC insured amount that you lose, which most people don't have, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Not a big deal.
It's not a big
It's
deal.
not gonna affect me. And like that stuff, even being in the news, is somewhat far removed and decoupled from residential real estate. So the tough thing that when you're running into just the run of the mill folks or the people we were talking about, they're always trying to find a reason to not buy your property, trying to correlate the stock market performance or what they're hearing on, what is that guy that yells all the time on TV? The stock guy.
The stock guy, Kramer.
They're taking that guy's input on stocks and correlating that to why they shouldn't buy real estate in the residential space right now. But as you and I know, like we do this all over the country, like there's deals to be had and there's buyers to buy those and properties to flip.
Yeah, like all over the place. I mean,
the tough thing right now is to go and find that buy and hold deal that everybody was talking about the last 5 years that you're going to fully burn, you're going to cash flow like a hog. Those are tougher to find. They still exist, but you're fundamentally buying the exact same deal. Your exit's just probably different. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a flip. It might be more of a creative finance where you put some long-term debt on it and wrap your equity in and sell it, or you do some sort of lease to own, or maybe you do just flip it.
Yeah. Well, I think the realistic expectation people have to have is you have to be parking capital in these deals these days, right? And like going back to when interest rates were low, you could refinance all your money, still have cash flow, those sort of things. Like the whole buying without cash or like no money down real estate is never been further from the truth than right now.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
Because you have to have some sort of equity spread to keep if you're gonna use banks at all, to keep your payment in a position where it's going to cash flow anything, right? And even if you go and you raise money, there's still money that has to go and be parked in the deal. It just might not be your money, right? Somebody else's. But like, don't pretend like it's going to be in and out of there in a really quick couple of months, because it's not.
It's not. It's unlikely to happen. And yeah, I think it's a great look back to say how influential 0% interest rates were, because money was super easy to get and it was free to the bank. So whatever they were loaning out, they're basically making a margin on. So they were able to lend it out at super cheap rates. And with that, they're able to take on risk because their whole thing was like, hey, we gotta loan this money. It's such a great deal for everybody involved. And now without that, you're realizing like that the economy slows down because there's just not as much movement because people don't want to park capital in real estate. And if you want to stay liquid, you probably shouldn't be it, because real estate is the most illiquid thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's not easy to sell and not easy to move quickly overnight.
Yeah. I mean, like at all. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. It's also why being in a position that a lot of real estate investors get into where they are extremely equity rich and extremely cash poor is a really bad place to be. Who was it that said this? I don't know if it was Cardone. Maybe it was like Chris Crown or no, in fact, I think it was Pace, because he would say this because he's a fucking idiot. But he was like, I refuse to hold any cash.
He did say that. He did say
yeah,
that.
and he's like, I park all of my money immediately into properties because basically any money that's sitting is like dead. And then he said also too, by having all of your money placed, it forces you to work harder because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, he's a liar.
Right? And that's the worst advice that I've ever heard anybody
terrible advice. That's almost as bad as like the idea of gator lending, where you have to like borrow money for earnest money.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea.
It just doesn't make any sense. And they people spin that as like it's a position of using leverage effectively. It's like, no, it's basically just continuing to keep your chips on the table and never taking any off. To pay your mortgage. And then in fact, when you run out of your chips, right, you go and you pull out of your HELOC and you put those on the table too.
Yeah. Don't leave those chips in your house. Yeah. Put them somewhere else.
It's going to make you work harder. Just keep going for it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely going to make you work harder because you're going to be broke.
Dude,
you're going to have to go back to work at McDonald's.
Dumbest thing. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to know what's going to happen. What do you think? I've seen this trend recently, like in the last like week. A certain demographic, it's guys that are posting this. It's always what I would call like I'm trying to think about how to phrase it so people don't blow me up. It's like the dad age, like older than you, like 40s to 50s, like the people that vote for Trump, but not because they're Republicans, it's because they're racist and they like kind of like that vibe. Right.
Okay. I don't know if I have this avatar I don't know if I have this avatar on my Instagram. So keep going.
You do. It's like half your neighbors, bro. We live in Spokane.
I'm trying to figure it out. Like, okay, where are you going with this? Let's finish this.
They like it because like they like the outrage of it, right? It's not because they're into like the Republican Party and the message. They like the outrage that comes with being involved with like that side of the political sphere. And
with the extreme side.
With the extreme side of like everything
point of view?
Sucks. What's now swung that's almost like anti-American. Like they're the ones that think about the Roman Empire every 2 minutes or whatever, because they're always thinking about how the United States is collapsing. That's what they focus on.
Gotcha.
But the current trend I am seeing them repost and post is around the fact that if you look past the last 25, 30 years or whatever, where property was X amount and now it's 20 times more than that.
Okay.
A lot of them are very boldly making the argument the real estate has not appreciated at all. And in fact, the US dollar has just lost that much value, right? And that property is actually worth exactly the same. And I've seen 2 people post this just today, not even the past few days. What's your opinion on that?
So here is my uneducated opinion. First of all, I don't like to make big claims out loud about macroeconomic shit that I don't even understand. So I don't like to repeat what other people say, which is most of what shit goes on the internet. I don't have any basis for that. Like I mean, yes, we've all gone through inflation. So we've experienced it. Like I legit, like last year and the year before, like I felt it, but it wasn't like, oh, but like this year I like, oh, okay. Things did get more expensive. Right. And now that's just the new norm. But that doesn't mean that you can't go and buy shit in like another country because the dollar is so weak. I don't buy that. And I don't buy that the American economy is collapsing, that the dollar is going away. But I also don't have, like, I don't know anybody that can make that statement and honestly know with fact.
They all just read it on some bot Twitter account that's run by a Russian guy that's trying to stir shit.
Right. I think that all that like anti-American or like, we're not the same we are. I think partially that's like a generational thing. As people get older, they see the world through a different set of lenses. And I think that's okay. The difference is like a lot of baby boomers are on TikTok and Instagram now. And they're at that age too, where we all get there, where you're more loose with your opinions and like you just let them rip. And so I think there's some of that going on, but I don't see that there's any proof to that. I just can't see it.
Sure. So my general opinion on this, and I've been thinking about this most of the day, is they're trying to like make this statement about how everything's bad, and you kind of should just like I don't know, give up on the US or whatever, because, there's been this inflation they're not being honest with us about, those properties like way too expensive, all this sort of stuff. Here's how I view it. It should not matter. It should not affect anything, right? Because if all of a sudden the $400,000 house now was worth, $20,000 40 years ago, and you, instead of viewing it as like, oh man, that's due to inflation, who cares? You still have a lot of money relative to right now. Yeah. Like if anything, that should be building more of a use case about why you should be looking to hold real estate long term, and how the kind of thesis around real estate in general has been around how it's like a hedge against inflation. If what they're saying is actually true, which is not, if it is actually true, then you should be holding every property, right? And like, why are you trying to make it like a negative thing? Instead, you should be using that as a reason to go out and buy more and invest more and be more proactive around the assets that you're holding.
Yeah.
Right. And for some reason,
that's a good point. You're right. That's like a good argument for inflation, and that you should, I guess I was looking at the spin on it is that because the American dollar is weaker, that we wouldn't have the same buying power in the world marketplace.
Which is not true at all. I can tell you that from experience as someone who has traveled a lot of places in the world over the last 2 years. We kick ass everywhere right now. You can afford a lot of things places.
Well, and that's the other thing, that the point I would bring up too is it's super easy to have like the self-fulfilling prophecy where like the world's coming to an end. Like look at America, like we're not doing like how we used to be. Well, in reality, go to a country that's not a world power, that is not known for their economy and is maybe even in decline a little bit. Like maybe they're in, because like the world, we all kind of go into recession similar times, right? So go to another, whether it's a European country, an Asian country, I bet you'll find some happy people there. And I bet you things will be buzzing down the road just like they were the day before.
Yeah, you'll find more happy people.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, because they're not so worried about being the world power. It's like when you're on top, there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. And so I think that we get kind of wrapped up in that, like maybe as like a country, and like the people that are posting this, like this egocentric mentality around who we are as Americans and what it needs to look like, what it needs to be. And if it's not always the bull market, then it's like end of the world. I just don't. In reality, I love a bull market, man. It feels way better. It's like, this is awesome. I'm making more money every day and everybody's talking good. Yeah. But that's just not reality.
It goes back to the saying, I don't know who originally said it, but I heard Conor McGregor say it, a UFC fighter. And it's like, they say losers focus on winners and winners focus on winning. Right. Winning's kind of relative, but you could say that like a lot of these countries that aren't the world powers, in their world, they are winning because things are getting a little bit better every day. They're not like constantly worried about losing first place, which also too, I hate to break to everybody, China's already won. We just haven't realized it yet.
Whoa. Don't say that.
Dude. They have. There's so many things that they're forcing us to make.
Great. We're going to get censored now. We're not getting on Truth Social anymore. Don't say that.
Truth Social. I'm going to go and update my profile on the Republican dating app, the right stuff,
Yeah. I mean, from an economic standpoint, you're not wrong. China is definitely crushing it.
Yeah. But either way,
they're a large economy.
It's just, it's just interesting for me to see this like viewpoint that's come out that's like so almost like anti-real estate and almost anti-do everything, because it's like a
take all of your money, take all your investments. Here's what you should do: take all your investments and buy gold.
No, you know what the worst one is right now? I see this a lot too, and this is like the same sort of demographic of people. In fact, somebody just fucking did this in like I don't even know. I think they were from the East Coast. They moved to Russia because they were under the guise that it was going to be like a better lifestyle. And this was on this. I saw this on Reddit, so it may or may not be true. But it was a family of 10 that moved to Russia because they wanted to escape our corrupt government, and then they were now like stuck there because they wouldn't let them leave. Yeah, because they didn't have the appropriate documentation.
Yeah, bro. Like don't go to Russia.
But like so this I've seen this other trend constantly on Instagram of people that are like, here's why I make all my money in the United States, and instead of living there, I live in Dubai. And it's like this weird thing that I guarantee you is like some Dubai prince that is like paying these influencers to try and like sell Dubai
Absolutely.
to people with money to try and get them to move there.
For sure.
Because it just doesn't make any, it's marketing, right? Like,
marketing.
Especially it's always like this, like, you know, good looking couple. They have like young kids. They're talking about their super successful business. Now Dubai, they don't have taxes and gas is so cheap. And this is the apartment that they own. And, you know, they have like,
slave labor. That's how they build it all. Labor.
They say like they're protected from like all these different like kind of like crimes and stuff that you can commit in other countries. Like there's like weird shit that they're trying to do. And like, I guarantee you that there is some 28-year-old prince that lives there that's like, I'm just going to get all the Instagrammers to bring rich people here.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And then they all have companies too. It's like, hey, do you want to start a trust so that you can hold your real estate assets in Western countries, but also live here? Here's the law firm that we use to do it for you, right? It's just such a
dude. You go down deep, bro. I am basic on that. On
this
my
is
phone.
what I get in my 3 minutes of reels every day.
I don't, dude. I don't get any of that. People moving to Russia. I don't even get the old dudes talking about how you should, you know, sell everything and go into a bunker.
Oh, you do. You
think I would get that?
With a lot of these people. Yeah, we're mutual.
I know, but I
friends.
don't see them. I don't see them on the. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think point being with all this though is it's never been more important than right now to be in control of your own stuff, right? Choose your own destiny, and really just be intentional about like looking out for yourself, right? And not expecting other people to do it for you.
Take action, do some shit. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like if you're out there and you're kind of like debating on what you should do next, you know, just take some action one step at a time. I mean, I know it's easy to say, but that's how we all got started at some point in time. I mean, going back to when I bought my first rental property, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know anything. Totally. I figured it out as I went, spent a bunch of money, figured it out. I didn't have nearly as much as I thought I would, but you know, I just kept buying real estate and it kept working and it kept working. And once you that's the other thing too about like real estate and investing. Like there's two things on this investing point I would make. Everybody knows if you put money in the S&P 500, it will grow. All right.
Knows, quote unquote. You don't know anything, right? They assume.
But you can go and put in there if you here. I'm a numbers person. So if you look back however many years, it's always grown. However, I'm sure somebody could come on here and tell us what the average like return on the S&P 500 is, like 7, 8, 9%, something like that.
And that number will fluctuate depending if they work for a 401k company or not.
Yes, that's exactly true. Right. But in general, it should go up, whatever that percentage is. I don't think it's the best investment. Like, I think you can make more money doing other things, but you know, the other point on investing though is like, okay, so if you know that to be true, or you feel that that's true, the same thing is true in real estate. So you could go and buy and invest in real estate or replace that with whatever asset that's alternative to the S&P 500. And if you see other people doing it and it's working for them, like you could probably just mimic them and do the same thing. I mean, that's what I did, right? I just copied other people.
Yeah. And I think also too, a thing to keep in mind is that success in growth and value is relative to each other or to the global marketplace, not to the past, right? There's this really weird thing that people do where they like to look at the value of things now versus in the past. And it doesn't freaking matter at all.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
So I like the going back to the real estate thing I said before, right? Where people are like, wow, this house used to be $20,000 and now it's $400,000.
Totally.
This is like, that's crazy. That shows that there's like a problem. It's like, no.
It doesn't prove, it doesn't show anything on face value. It means nothing.
It means nothing. But then when you look at that $400,000 relative to the world economy, it's a lot of money. So that's great. So you should own that property, right?
Yeah.
You know, instead people use that as like a position to show devaluation, but you should, because they're looking at it from the currency perspective, but instead you should look like, okay, cool. Well, that gives us the ability to, you know, live a decent life, to, you know, travel, to, you know, be able to spend a lot of money other places. So that's a good thing. Right. And I don't know, it's just, we're getting in the weeds a lot, but it's fine.
Sorry guys.
So, yeah. Sorry. Just the challenge.
It's a great thought exercise that started off with us complaining about retail buyers and then getting into global economics and like why people say stuff. I'll just sum it up with like, I just don't like people that make those I don't know what I'd call those, like backhanded comments or whatever that they say about things where it's just like, it's not, there's no fact in that. So don't use that to make your decision on anything.
Sure. And I will say that we definitely get a unique perspective to the real estate market in general, because, you know, we do a couple hundred deals a year and we're active across the United States. So we have a little peek outside of like the local bubble that most people live their entire lives in. Like most people, especially in the United States, that don't travel, right? I mean, because a lot of people don't even travel within the US. Most people, they go to like their vacation spots that are within a driving distance of where they live. And so their entire, the Catskills, right? The Keys, whatever it is. Their worldview is based off of a very, very, very small geographic area and demographic population. That's all the same. And it doesn't make sense, right? And they use that to make very, very bold statements and proclamations around the world and the country as a whole. And I can tell you that if anyone ever says something that seems like an extreme statement, it is incorrect. Right. And the best thing that you can do is to figure out how to take control of your own money, your own finances, invest for yourself, and also don't ever expect anything to be passive. Right. Things can be like passive-ish, but there's always going to have to be an active reevaluation, you know, whether it's an evaluation at the start, a reevaluation as you go year over year, and some kind of management, because setting your money and forgetting it, be that in stocks, in houses, whatever, it's just eventually going to lead to some sort of issues if you don't.
You have to actively manage it, and you can't rely just on people that tell you things. You know, if you're relying on a single source of information to grow your retirement savings or whatever that is, you're probably not going to make as much money as you could as if you actively managed it.
Exactly. That's why they say building wealth is a skill, is because it is something that you need to actively be growing and improving upon. And if you're not, you're just not going to be wealthy, regardless of what the economy and the US dollar and inflation and the world does. So cool. Anyways.
Fair point.
All right. So there's your ramblings from two not yet baby boomers, but people who talk like they're old, maybe. I don't know. I feel like just throwing out weird conspiracy shit.
And we haven't had like a true conspiracy episode in a while.
I mean, it's not a conspiracy, though. That's just like basic economic analysis in a world where everyone just throws out whatever headline that they read over and over and never thinks about things critically. But anyways, we appreciate you guys listening. Choose a follow on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invest. Dan's at InvestorManDan. We are posting all sorts of stuff on there these days, going into all sorts of different ways that we build out our business, you know, how we build out different systems, how we hire, what our real estate business actually looks like. So check us out on those. We would appreciate it. And thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next week.
See you.